Now Narad is answering Asvapati's question. Asvapati's question is about the power of the spirit and the soul over nature. And Narad has been saying that the way human beings are at the moment, we have to pass through suffering. We don't know how things really are. We don't respond to the truth of the universe. We think this is all dead matter, unconscious force. But he said, actually, a magician has made matter's laws. We are bound by them as long as they last, as long as those laws last. But all can change if the magician chooses. And then the last sentence that we read last time, he said, if human will could be made one with God's will, if human thought could echo the thoughts of God, man might be all-knowing and omnipotent. It doesn't mean he might be, it means he has the capacity to be. But now he is walking in nature's doubtful ray, this twilight of the ignorance. So I'm going to read on from there. Yet can the mind of man receive God's light. The force of man can be driven by God's force. Then is he a miracle doing miracles. For only so can he be nature's king. It is decreed, and Shraddhavan must die. The hour is fixed, chosen, the fatal stroke. What else shall be is written in her soul. But till the hour reveals the fateful script, the writing waits, illegible and mute. Fate is truth working out in ignorance. O King, thy fate is a transaction done at every hour between nature and thy soul, with God for its foreseeing arbiter. Fate is a balance drawn in destiny's book. Man can accept his fate, he can refuse. Even if the one maintains the unseen decree, he writes thy refusal in thy credit page. For doom is not a close, a mystic seal, arisen from the tragic clash of life, arisen from the body's torture and death. The spirit rises mightier by defeat. Its God-like wings grow wider with each fall. Its splendid failures sum to victory. O man, the events that meet thee on thy road, though they smite thy body and soul with joy and grief, are not thy fate. They touch thee a while and pass. Even death can cut not short thy spirit's walk. Thy goal, the road thou choosest, are thy fate. On the altar, throwing thy thoughts, thy heart, thy works, thy fate is a long sacrifice to the gods, till they have opened to thee thy secret self and made thee one with the indwelling God. O soul, intruder in nature's ignorance, armed traveller to the unseen supernal heights, thy spirit's fate is a battle and ceaseless march against invisible opponent powers, a passage from matter into timeless self. Adventurer through blind, unforeseeing time, a forced advance through a long line of lives, it pushes its spearhead through the centuries. Across the dust and mire of the earthly plain, on many guarded lines and dangerous fronts, in dire assaults, in wounded slow retreats, holding the ideals ringed and battered fort, or fighting against odds in lonely posts, or camped in night around the bivouac's fires, awaiting the tardy trumpets of the dawn, in hunger and in plenty and in pain, through peril and through triumph and through fall, through life's green lanes and over her desert sands, up the bald moor, along the sunlit ridge, in serried columns with a straggling rear, led by its nomad vanguard's signal fires, marches the army of the way-lost God. Which way are we going down, Lakshmi? You'll begin, please, Mihung. Yes.
Yet can the mind of man receive God's light. The force of man can be driven by God's force. Then is he a miracle doing miracles. For only so can he be nature's king.
Thank you. So despite the fact that we are walking in nature's doubtful ray, that we are living in the ignorance and we don't have the full light of the knowledge. Still, the mind of man, the human mind, can receive the light of the divine. If we open up and pray for it, we can receive the higher light. And even in action, the force of man, the strength of man, can be driven, impelled, pushed along by God's force. And when that happens, when the mind of man receives God's light, and when his force is driven by God's force, then even the human being or the human race can be a miracle, working miracles, doing miracles. And this is the way in which a human being can become master over nature, can become nature's king. That relates to Asvapati's question. What is the power of the spirit? Can't the spirit control nature? The spirit can control nature when the mind of man receives the light of God and his force is driven by God's force. Then he can be master over nature. Then he speaks about this situation that Savitri is in just now. Narad has revealed to Savitri and her parents that Satyavan is doomed to die.
It is decreed, and Satyavan must die. The hour is fixed, chosen, the fatal stroke. What else shall be is written in her soul. But till the hour reveals the fateful script, the writing waits, illegible and mute.
So he says there's no help for it. It's been decreed, it's predestined. Satyavan must die. And the time is fixed, and how he shall die, it's all fixed. But then he says, but there is another possibility. What else shall be? Satyavan will die. But what this will mean for Savitri, and what this will mean in general, is written in Savitri's soul. She also has a destiny. No? But he says, until the time comes when the hour reveals the fateful script, what has been written in Savitri's soul. Script is writing, no? What has been written there in her soul? Until the time comes, that writing cannot be read. It's waiting, it's illegible, it's silent, it can't communicate anything. So he, Narad, although he can see into the future, he can't say anything about it.
Though he could see, he's not like that.
He says he can't read it. It's illegible. Until that time comes, it won't be clear what will happen. No? And then he talks about what fate is. That's part of the title of this canto, the way of fate and the problem of pain. So far, he has said a lot about the problem of pain. But now, in answer to Asvapati's question, he's going to speak about fate. And he gives several different descriptions of what fate is. We think of fate as destiny, something that's fixed, that we can't do anything about. But he gives some other insights into the meaning of this word. Tamarai, you're going to read?
Faith is that working out in
Ignorance.
hoping that faith is a
Transaction.
down at every hour between nature and the soul, with God for its forcing arbiter. Faith is a balance drawn in
Destiny's book. Thank you. So this is the first insight that he's giving. Fate is the way that the truth that determines the course of the whole manifestation, is working out in the ignorance, in this intermediate state between the inconscious. We don't think about matter having a fate. It's only when there is some consciousness there that we think, oh, fate. No? So fate is the power of truth working itself out in ignorance, in the lives of conscious beings. And he speaks directly to the king. He says, O king, to Savitri's father, he says, thy fate is a transaction. A transaction is like an exchange, a bargain, no? Done. And he said it's happening at every hour. Some kind of a compromise or a bargain is worked out between nature, what has to happen from outside, and your soul. And God is keeping an eye on that exchange that's going on all the time. God is the arbiter. The arbiter is the one who can make a final decision, that it must be like this or like that. If two people are having a quarrel and a disagreement, they may agree to go to an arbiter who will listen to both sides and then decide what is right. So God is the arbiter, and he's a foreseeing arbiter. He can see what will be the result of this transaction, with this bargaining going on, this push and pull between the forces of nature and the power of the soul. So the fate gets worked out as a kind of balance in your account book, Destiny's account book. Destiny is keeping a record of what goes on, and underneath she draws a line. What is the balance? Is it a plus or is it a minus? It's a working out, a calculation between how much power nature has over a particular individual and how much power the soul has in a particular individual. So a balance gets worked out in Destiny's book.
Arbitrary.
We have that word arbitrary, when it's somebody has decided it. But this is not arbitrary. Here something gets worked out and God is the arbiter. He says, let it be like this.
That word arbitrary, generally, things that are not fair.
Yes.
Here,
Yes. Sergei.
Man can accept his fate. He can refuse, even if the one maintains the unseen decree. He writes thy refusal in thy created page. For though is not a clause, a mystic seal.
So this is interesting. You can accept your fate, but also you can refuse, you can rebel against it. This is this kind of transaction working out between nature and the soul. And if the soul refuses, even if the one maintains, even if the arbiter says, no, it has been decreed, it has to happen like this, he marks your refusal in the credit page. It will give you credit for next time. Because doom, this fate that comes to you, is not the end of things. It's not a seal on what happens. It's one of the very interesting things, Aurobindo has spoken about it in several places, the power of what might have been. So you try for something, it doesn't happen the way that you worked for, made a great effort for. But still, all that effort that you made has its value, it's not wasted. So the next time you make that attempt, it will be easier, the result will be richer. Will you read, please? Yes.
Arisen from the trash of life, arisen from the body's torture and death, the spirit rises mightier by the feet. Its godlike wings grow wider with each fall. Its splendid figure sung to victory.
Yes. So you may think, oh, what a tragic end, what a tragic fate. No? But that's not the end. The spirit rises up out of this tragic crash of life. Even when the body has suffered very, very much, the body has died, the spirit rises up stronger because of that experience, mightier, more powerful by defeat. And the spirit's godlike wings grow wider, stronger, each time that it passes through a fall and a defeat. Sometimes we think even that coming back to earth is a fall. You know, the spirit, after death, it rises up into its own world. Then it agrees to come back. And each time that it agrees to come back, it grows stronger, more powerful. Its wings grow wider. And all its failures, those splendid failures, when people have really made heroic endeavors and failed, those splendid failures, they add up finally to a great victory. Joella.
O man, the events that meet thee on thy road, though they smite thy body and soul with joy and grief, are not thy fate. They touch thee a while and pass. Even death can cut not short thy spirit's walk. Thy goal, the road thou chosest, are thy fate.
Yes. So these things that happen to us on our journey, the good things and the bad things, we say this is fate, but this is not our fate. These are just events, things that happen to us. They touch us for a while and then they pass. Even death can't cut short the journey of the spirit. Your fate is the goal. What has your soul chosen as its aim? Where is it going? And what road has it chosen? This is your fate. We had a great Vedic scholar, Dr. Kashyap, coming and speaking to us once, and he mentioned this word fate. He said that etymologically, in the history of words, it's connected with the word path. So your fate is the path that your soul has chosen. So your goal, the aim, where you're going, and the way that you choose to go there, this creates your fate.
Only after throwing thy thought, thy heart, thy word, thy faith is alone sacrificed to the gods, till they have opened to thee thy sacred self, and made thee one with the indwelling God.
Yes. So this is another view of fate. The idea of our whole soul journey as a process of sacrifice. That everything that we do, all our actions in nature, our thoughts, our feelings, our actions, if the soul offers all these things on the altar as a sacrifice to the gods, to the cosmic powers, that's a sacrifice that goes on until the cosmic powers decide that it's time for you to become aware of who you really are, until they have opened to thee thy secret self. It's as if certain progress has to be made in nature, certain efforts, offerings, self-givings have to be made in order to prepare us for that realization and to become one with the God who is dwelling in us. There's a divine being dwelling within each of us. It's watching from behind, it's guiding us. But that's a great fateful moment when we are able to become one with the indwelling God. And now Aurobindo will describe what a long and actually heroic process that is.
O soul, intruder in nature's ignorance, armed traveler to the unseen supernal heights, thy spirit's fate is a battle and ceaseless march against invisible opponent powers, a passage from matter into timeless self.
Yes, thank you. So he says, he addresses the soul, and he says, O soul, you are an intruder in nature's ignorance. You don't belong here. You have come from somewhere else. You have come as a traveler, and you've come armed. You have weapons. And you are traveling out of this state of ignorance that you've entered into to the supernal heights, the heights of the Supreme. So as long as you are on that journey, the fate of your spirit is a battle. You have to fight. It's a ceaseless march. You have to keep on going. And you are fighting against invisible opponent powers. There are beings and forces who are trying to prevent you reaching your goal. So you have to fight all the way these opponent powers. They are opposing you, and they are invisible. They are not here on the surface in the physical world. They belong to the subtle worlds. And this journey that you are taking, O soul, is a passage from matter into timeless self, to your true self, beyond time, in infinity and eternity. Mahalingam?
Adventure through blind unforeseeing time, a force that wants through the long line of life, it pushes its spirit through the centuries.
Yeah, this is the soul. The soul is an adventurer. And his adventure is passing through time. Time which is blind, unforeseen. We can't see what will happen next. So that march and that battle is a forced advance. This is a military term. When an army has to make a push and move forward. But this advance that the soul makes passes through a long line of lives. It has to go on moving forward through every difficulty, one life after another life, after another life, after another. This is the way that it pushes its spearhead, the sharp point of its advance, through the centuries, over hundreds of years, thousands even. This is the adventure of the soul, from matter to timeless self, through time, through life after life after life. Now comes a long sentence. It's not the longest sentence in Savitri, but it's one of the longest. It's 14 lines. I counted it. And it's a picture with a meaning. So we will read the whole sentence, please, Alice. Then we'll look at the picture, and then we'll think about what this picture means.
Across the dust and mire of the earthly plain, on many guarded lines and dangerous fronts, in dire assaults, in wounded, slow retreats, holding the ideals wind in battered fort, or fighting against odds and lonely hosts, or camped in night around the bivouac's fires, awaiting the tardy trumpets of the dawn, in hunger and in plenty and in pain, through peril, through triumph, and through fall, through life's green lanes and over her desert sands, up the bald moor, along the sunlit ridge, in serried columns with straggling rear, led by its nomad vanguard's signal fires, marches the army of the way lost.
So this is the picture of an army on the move. The warrior soul, the heroic soul, is part of this army. It has to cross the earthly plane, the ordinary life of earth, with its dust and its mire, its mud. Then these are military terms, on many guarded lines. So the army will move forward. They will try to follow ways that are protected. They have some scouts, people protecting the way where they will advance. And sometimes they have to advance really on dangerous fronts, front lines where they will have to fight the enemy. In dire assaults, terrible attacks, they will advance. And sometimes they have to retreat, they have to draw back because the other forces are more powerful. Slowly they will retreat, wounded, attacked and harried on all sides. No? These are experiences that soldiers have. Sometimes what they will have to do is to hold a fort. A fort is a strong place that can be defended. This fort is ringed. There's an army surrounding the fort, and the fort is battered. There are attacks, maybe cannons or gunfire, attacking the fort. And those few people, they have to hold the fort. They must not let it be captured by the army. Or there may be only a few people fighting against odds in lonely posts. Maybe just a handful of soldiers have been given a post, a place that they have to guard, hold that post. And if they get attacked, they have to fight against odds. It means that there are many, many more people attacking them than the ones who are defending. Sometimes or often when they are on the march, they will have to camp at night in a bivouac. It means a temporary camp. You can't even put up a tent or anything like that. Just where you are, you have to find a little bit of shelter. Camped at night. Maybe you can light a fire to keep a little bit warm and give some comfort. And then you will be waiting. You will be waiting for the dawn to come, waiting for the night to be over. And when you're waiting like that, it seems such a long time before the dawn comes up. So those trumpets that the soldiers blow to announce that, oh, now it's wake-up time, the day is starting, these seem to be very tardy, very late, very slow in coming. On the march, the army will experience hunger, but sometimes they will be lucky and they will experience plenty, and often they will experience pain. They will experience peril, danger, and occasionally they will win a victory and they will experience triumph. That's that happiness that you feel when you've won a great victory. And through fall, sometimes soldiers will die. They have to pass through many different landscapes, through life's green lanes, pleasant ways, and over her desert sands. That's much more difficult to march through the desert on the sand. It's so difficult to march. Sometimes they will have to go up the hillside, up the bald moor where there are no hills. It's windy and grey, cloudy. And sometimes they may get a beautiful sunlit ridge which gives them a beautiful view on both sides. In serried columns, it means many men marching close together, serried, close together. But there's a straggling rear. Some of them can't keep up with the body of the army. There'll be a few stragglers, a few people who've been left behind, who are trying their best to follow, perhaps because they are wounded or they have things to carry, equipment. But the whole army is following, it is led by its vanguard. The word vanguard means the part of the army that's up front. In French we have the word avant-garde. This vanguard must be from that. They are the guards, the strong ones, who are there up at the front, ahead of everybody else. So they have fires, they light fires as signals to the rest of the army, so that the army can see where they are and follow them. So this is the way that the army of the way-lost God marches. The army of the souls who are lost here in nature. They must be in touch with each other, but they are struggling. It's not always clear where is the way. The way is lost. Where do they have to go? So this is the kind of journey that the soul has to make. It has to pass through many, many different experiences. None of it is easy, except now and then there are happier moments, moments of plenty and triumph. They have to be ready to fight against odds, to hold a position, and also to advance on.
So this soul's fate?
This is if we have chosen to come here to be part of this manifestation here on earth, then this is part of our fate. We will have to follow this process.
So we should be a warrior?
Yes, in fact, all the souls of every being who is on earth, everyone is a hero. There are many people who have attested to this. And that is, we look around and everybody looks so ordinary, and we don't see the heroic soul that has accepted this fate and to be part of this army.
But Shraddhavan, this warrior and hero is make us can be also dangerous. Can be bigotry and
Yes, so that's why usually we don't know, that heroic soul is kept deep within until we've become pure enough, till we've sacrificed enough, that the cosmic powers can open up to us this revelation of the secret self and make us one with the indwelling God. They won't do that if there's a danger of us becoming titanic, brutal, like that.
This is the travel of a soul of several lives, or
This is first of all, he spoke about the individual soul. But this now is the battle that's going on, the march that's going on of all the souls who are moving towards a divine fulfillment. Bhavana, would you read?
Then late the joy ineffable is felt. Then he remembers his forgotten self. He has reformed the skies from which he fell.
So at last, the individual soul remembers who he really is. And then he finds again, he re-finds, he rediscovers those heavens that he has come from. That gives an ineffable joy. ineffable, that can't be expressed, a really supreme joy of the soul when it discovers itself. We'll read one more sentence, Berbel, please.
At length his front's indubitable light forces the last passes of the ignorance, advancing beyond nature's last known bounds. Reconnoitering the
formidable
unknown, beyond the landmarks of things visible, it mounts through a
miraculous
upper air, till climbing the new summit of the world, he stands upon the splendor peaks of God.
Thank you. So at length, after a long time, at last, the front of the army, indomitable. It means that can't be defeated, can't be conquered. It's so determined, it goes on obstinately. At last, it forces the last passes of the ignorance. A pass is where a narrow place where you have to cross over the mountain. If you can force your way through the pass, then you've left the ignorance behind. You advance beyond the last known boundaries of nature, and you start reconnoitering the unknown. This is also something that an army has to do. They have to reconnoiter, send scouts out in advance to find out what is there. So this is also happening. Beyond the landmarks of things visible, all these physical landmarks have been left behind. So the spirit mounts up, rises up through a miraculous upper air until it climbs the mute summit of the world, the very peak of the world stair.
What is called mute?
Mute because it doesn't speak, it's silent. The tops of mountains are lonely places, silent. Of course, sometimes they're very noisy if there are winds and avalanches, but there's something peaceful up there on the very highest levels of consciousness. He stands upon the splendor peaks of God, these high mountain peaks. That's the end of the journey. We'll stop there for today. Has anybody got anything that they would like to ask? Anything I haven't explained properly? Oh, the nomad vanguard, yes. Nomads are people who have no fixed abode, or they are always on the move. Yes, or there are certain tribes who actually they have some place where they spend the summer with their animals, and then after a few months they have to move on and go to the winter place. So their whole life is spent on the move. That's why he uses this word here, that the vanguard, the avant-garde, the people who are going in front, the souls who are leading the way, they always have to be moving.
Some tribes are called nomadic tribes.
Yes.
People who are always.
Yes, exactly. Yet can the mind of man receive God's light? The force of man can be driven by God's force. Then is he a miracle doing miracles, for only so can he be nature's king. It is decreed, and Shraddhavan must die. The hour is fixed, chosen the fatal stroke. What else shall be is written in her soul. But till the hour reveals the fateful script, the writing waits illegible and mute. Fate is truth working out in ignorance. O King, thy fate is a transaction done at every hour between nature and thy soul, with God for its foreseeing arbiter. Fate is a balance drawn in destiny's book. Man can accept his fate, he can refuse. Even if the one maintains the unseen decree, he writes thy refusal in thy credit page. For doom is not a close, a mystic seal. Arisen from the tragic crash of life, arisen from the body's torture and death, the spirit rises mightier by defeat. Its godlike wings grow wider with each fall. Its splendid failures sum to victory. O man, the events that meet thee on thy road, though they smite thy body and soul with joy and grief, are not thy fate. They touch thee a while and pass. Even death can cut not short thy spirit's walk. Thy goal, the road thou choosest, are thy fate. On the altar throwing thy thoughts, thy heart, thy works, thy fate is a long sacrifice to the gods, till they have opened to thee thy secret self, and made thee one with the indwelling God. O soul, intruder in nature's ignorance, armed traveller to the unseen supernal heights, thy spirit's fate is a battle and ceaseless march against invisible opponent powers, a passage from matter into timeless self. Adventurer through blind unforeseeing time, a forced advance through a long line of lives, it pushes its spearhead through the centuries. Across the dust and mire of the earthly plain, on many guarded lines and dangerous fronts, in dire assaults, in wounded slow retreats, holding the ideals ringed and battered fought, or fighting against odds in lonely posts, or camped in night around the bivouac's fires, awaiting the tardy trumpets of the dawn. In hunger and in plenty and in pain, through peril and through triumph and through fall, through life's green lanes and over her desert sands, up the bald moor, along the sunlit ridge, in serried columns with a straggling rear, led by its nomad vanguard's signal fires, marches the army of the way-lost God. Then late the joy ineffable is felt. Then he remembers his forgotten self. He has refound the skies from which he fell. At length his front's indomitable line forces the last passes of the ignorance, advancing beyond nature's last known bounds, reconnoitering the formidable unknown, beyond the landmarks of things visible. It mounts through a miraculous upper air, till climbing the mute summit of the world, he stands upon the splendor peaks of God.